All right, so I think we'll just start, as it's already 6:05, and I guess most German people in Germany, living people, are quite punctual. And we will record this and then put it online anyway for someone to see it later. So hi, and thank you for joining the session. My name is Michael, and I am a meditation facilitator and also an artist. And I've been doing this for several years now, and what we're doing with Soulmastery, which this is my channel and also our brand. The Soulmastery bring meditation into corporate world. So we offer meditation for business, for large corporates, C-levels, and so on. And today I want to talk about meditation as a tool and how you can use it. So this talk is for everybody or anybody who is interested in this topic, but maybe has no or very little experience, or maybe tried it once and has some struggle, and but still is interested in this topic. So if you're a very experienced meditator, this might not be big news to you, but maybe one or other information is still available for you to, let's say, level up your practice. And because we will talk about some topics that are considered to be somewhat in the esoteric realm, it's always important to have a maybe perspective on that, who is telling you the story. So I will just very briefly tell you something about myself, and then we dive into the content. So, like mentioned, my name is Michael. I've been in consulting, Accenture for many years internationally. I worked in an investment bank for many years, and I had an own company producing barbecue sauces and spices. Yeah, it's another world. And due to some personal circumstances, I discovered meditation as a way out of depression, and meditated for many thousand hours in the last couple of years. Went to India, went to Asia, and discovered many different techniques which can be employed in daily life and in daily business especially. So this is something you can leverage on for you to become more focused, more calm, more relaxed, and also handle difficult situations better. So first of all, let me just briefly define how I see meditation, what meditation is for me, before we start touching points on what are different techniques and so on, because everybody has a different view on this meditation topic. There are many apps popping up. There are many people discovering this content for themselves. So it's important to see, okay, what it's for me, what it's not, because from there we'll take it, everything else. So for me, meditation is basically observing. It's observing the mind, it's observing the self, and it's observing also emotions and everything that pops up during our whole day while we are awake. And meditation for me has a non-judging attitude, and also is fun, but for it to be fun, some have to train a little bit. And many people associate meditation with religion and esoteric practices. So we talk a lot to big corporates during our work, who say, hey, meditation, this is something you have to be Buddhist, or you have to be Hindu, you have to believe into something, or you have to do some kind of, I don't know, crazy stuff in order to get profits out of meditation. And this is obviously not correct, because meditation is an ancient tool. It does stem from different Asian religions like Buddhism, Hinduism, and many others. Also, Islam use meditation, and also Jewish traditions incorporate some parts of meditation, and so on. I've studied many religions in depth, and we explored many different techniques, combined all of them, and see what works. I will touch on that later on. So for you to use meditation for your daily benefit, you don't have to believe anything. You don't have to be any kind of even spiritual person. That's not necessary. It might come along with the practice. You might be already a spiritually interested person or whatever, but that is not a prerequisite. So to use meditation, all you basically need is yourself, and in the beginning, a quiet place where you're not disturbed. And I'm saying in the beginning because with a little bit of practice, meditation is possible anywhere. Basically, I'm also trying to keep a meditative state while I'm talking to you right now. And meditation is something, why you should try it. Let me just briefly cover some scientific discoveries or scientific proofs for what it does to you and your brain and your body. But first of all, it lowers, of course, blood pressure, improves the heart rate, There's a lot for your breathing capacities because many meditation techniques also incorporate breathing techniques or focus on the breath. And so what it does in the brain, it helps you to build new neuronal pathways, so new connections in your brain, which also open up a lot of space for, let's say, different other qualities which you might not yet be aware of that you have. So, for example, there's this area in your brain, amygdala, which is responsible also for fear. And there's a scientific study, research, which is several years old already, that showed that only after 8 weeks of regular meditation practice, this area of the brain shrinks. And with experienced monks, Buddhist monks, they tested it, and this area seems to be almost non-functional, very little present. So you can learn how to handle fear better, for example. Another thing is that this is a gray matter in your brain. This is a region which is largely increasing through meditation, and it's responsible for attentional control, for muscle control, and also for decision taking and many other different things. So if you just Google it, there are so many studies showing the benefits for the body and the mind. But basically, I want to focus on brain waves. So maybe some of you are familiar with EEG scans, where you can use a helmet and measure your brain wave frequency. And your brain emits different frequencies during different activities and different states you're in. So for example, during a normal day, you might experience constant levels of beta wave frequency, which is connected to an anxiety, active attention state. So it's something that we are in to be able also to focus. There's also the gamma state, which is even a higher vibration. But if we're in the beta brain wave frequency, we're focused and we're very externally oriented. So this is a stress state, basically, which helps us to get things done, to maybe, as we have been hunter-gatherers, to not being eaten by a predator or being able to catch some prey or whatever. The things are in this world constantly. When we're working, for example, on a computer, might be in a different brain wave frequency, is at night during sleep or during power naps, or maybe unconscious relaxation when you wait for the bus and not look into your mobile phone, or maybe just your gaze wanders off somewhere. Then you're not in the better brain state after a while. And meditation allows you to come into a lower frequency, for example, alpha, or even theta, where your whole brain can relax. And this is a lower state associated with a passive attention or even inward focus. If you Google it up, you can see it. So what the meditation basically does, you can imagine your brain for this small exercise as a muscle. All day, this muscle is tense because you're in a high vibrating state, so you kind of flex your muscle. And meditation gives you the possibility to relax it outside of sleep. And even if you watch, for example, Netflix in the evening, or you play a video game or whatever, even if you read a very exciting book, you are still in the better brainwave frequency because these things are made that way that they pull us in and we experience feelings the way they will be experienced them more or less in real life. For the brain and for our body-mind system, it basically doesn't matter if we see something on screen and we live through these emotions or we are living through them ourselves. So meditation can be breaks for your brain to shift, for example, into an alpha frequency, which is a calm, relaxed state of awareness. And there are also techniques, I will touch later on the different techniques. There are also techniques that allow you to enter the alpha brainwave state almost instantly. So with a little practice, you can, even after 1 or 2 minutes, really feel how you leave the beta frequency and come into the alpha frequency state. And you feel more relaxed, calm, and have a little bit of a little gap to your thoughts and emotions, and not so involved in the things going on, which might be very helpful at times, especially during stressful moments and during maybe some email communication where you, for example, if you're a freelancer, as I am, you get an email from the clients telling you, okay, look, this is really bad, or we reject your offer, or basically you messed up. And at this point, many of us know this. There's a lot of sensations rising up. We feel very involved. the brain tells you immediately you need to do something, to counteract, to react. And if you are in a more contemplated state of mind and more contemplated state of being, you don't have to react. You can respond, which is a big difference. And in order not to be reactive and to be responsive, also to be responsible for yourself, a little bit of distance towards your own mind games and patterns are very important. And just already 5 minutes meditation per day in the beginning has the potential to enable new neuronal pathways to form and for your brain to learn new ways. And in the beginning, of course, it will be hard, or it's hard for most people. And many people, also in our workshops, and many people I work with, that told me, yeah, I tried it by myself and I fail. I cannot meditate, which is utter nonsense because everybody can meditate. And what people always tell, what they feel as a failure is basically actually the proof what meditation does. So as an example, people have the expectation that meditation will bring full calmness of the mind immediately, or maybe even stop thinking. And the bad news is that it's not very likely that a meditation novice is able to stop thinking immediately by just practicing 5 or 10 minutes per day. There are rare exceptions where this happens, but for many people, it's a constant learning path. Just like with sports, you have to train for a while in order to reap the benefits. And but the good news is there is a state of, as the different cultures call it, no mind, where thoughts can cease and the breaks between individual thoughts become longer. And you can really be in a state of silence and calmness, but unfortunately it does not come immediately. So it takes a little bit of practice for old neuronal paths to be changed into new connections, which allow us to be in a more relaxed and calm state. So everybody who wants to use meditation for their own, let's say, profit or their own improvement, I recommend to stick with any practice. We will discuss several in a minute, as I already mentioned. I recommend to stick to any practice for at least 7 to 21 days. It's always recommendable to stick to it to 21 days. And if you start with 5 minutes per day, for example, in the morning, which is in my experience best, but might be different for everyone, and just do it for 21 days, you will notice a change. It doesn't matter the technique, just don't mix the techniques. Just stay with one for a couple of days and see if it suits you and change only then. And you can also do it multiple times a day. So in the teaser for this session, we'll also talk about being less distractible, which is one of many benefits from meditation. And how this works is everything around meditation and all this, let's say, topic for me personally has to do with awareness. And there's a lot of mindfulness boom at the moment. You hear this word a lot. Mindfulness is everywhere. And there's a small difference between mindful and mindful. And awareness is the key. So to become self-aware, meditation is one of the means. It's not the only means. So for example, if you go the yoga path, or maybe you do Tai Chi or Qigong or Kung Fu, you might also become self-aware and gain a greater sense of awareness. But meditation, for me, out of everything that I tried, is kind of like the most effective way to raise awareness. And awareness is the key for basically everything in my personal experience so far. So I mentioned earlier, I've been working in consulting companies and investment banking and so on, requiring a lot of working hours, a lot of attention, a lot of focus. And I've been working for 14 hours thinking that I'm productive. And today, for example, I work maximum of 4 to 5 hours and getting the same amount done I've been used to doing like 10 hours per day in my previous jobs without awareness. And how that works is that the distractions that we have, many people blame tools for being the distraction. So I hear a lot in big companies that Slack is a source of stress, Teams or WhatsApp or social media. Everybody blames social media, which we're on right now, Instagram. And but the tools are not the problem. The problem is always, unfortunately, within ourselves. And it's always the first step to recognize it and take responsibility for that. Because if we are getting distracted, it's not Slack that distracts us. So if we would go down this argumentative route, then the people working at Slack would be the most distracted people in the world, and it would be a miracle how they can get such a good app done if Slack would be the main source of distraction. So, and people at Slack actually report that they are very, very focused and found a way to deal with distractions. And this way to deal with distractions is found inside and not in the tools. Of course, we have to use tools responsibly, and you have like flight modes and turn off notifications and all this kind of stuff. But distractions are everywhere. So you can turn off your notifications. You can shut yourself in a room and try to get something done. And then you notice that there's an urge to just do something else. And for example, oh, I want to eat something. Or as we take an example of studying, when I was studying in the university, my room was the cleanest around exam time. So I've been washing dishes, doing my laundry, everything before I sat down to do the studying as I had any more excuses. And this is the same thing with Slack, with Teams, with Instagram, and all the other distractions that many professionals now claim to take away their time. So basically what happens is we do something that is not really fulfilling or satisfying, and then we feel an urge to do something else. So this distraction comes with a discomfort. And with awareness, which we can train in meditation, with meditation, we can notice this distraction coming up. So usually what we notice is already the result. There's an urge to get up, an urge to do something else, an urge to scroll through the feed or play a video game or watch a meme or whatever. And this urge arises out of discomfort. And once we can be as aware to see this discomfort coming up, we can have a different opportunity to deal with it. So whenever this discomfort arises, we can identify and handle this feeling only through observing. And observing is something we train in meditation. So if you think that you're already very good at observing and you're very aware, you can do just a little exercise. Take a bell or maybe a gong in an app, there are many apps, and just ring this gong or ring the bell and try to focus on when the sound ends. So just ring a gong and listen to identify when does the sound of the gong end. You will see most of gongs or bells ring for a couple of seconds, and this is already enough for your mind to wander off. So while you're listening to the gong and try to recognize the end of the bell, you will already be somewhere else. And this is what I mentioned also earlier, when people say they cannot meditate, they sit down, they try to go inside, and they notice that there's a lot of chatter inside and a lot of noise, a lot of thoughts and a lot of feelings, which were not there before meditation, they think. And this is actually not correct, because the thoughts and feelings are there all the time. And we are just not aware of them because we are outwardly focused. The moment we go in, we start noticing all these feelings and all the thoughts that we have. And they seem overwhelming in the beginning, but with a little bit of practice, that's why at the beginning we have to stick with it, this changes. We get a whole different view on it, and it's not as overwhelming as it was before, and it becomes even very relaxing once we learn to watch the thoughts and not to be identified with them. So that's why there's always in the guided meditations, there's some kind of voice which brings you back to a certain focus point, like your breath or your posture or the noises or the smells or whatever. And if you have tried one of the apps like Headspace, for example, you will see Andy always brings you back to where you are, just for you to not be caught up in your thoughts, which always take you away. And this happens due to a low level of awareness. Whenever awareness starts growing, which it does automatically just by practicing meditation daily, you will notice that you will need less and less prompts, so less and less someone telling you to come back to where you are. And you will have more moments also of silence and more distance to your thoughts with more awareness. And coming back to the distraction part, whenever you feel distracted from your work, ask yourself, what is the discomfort that was preceding this distraction? So as for me, I hate doing taxes or all this kind of filing and this kind of stuff. And whenever I sit down with my pile of bills and so on, and I start to file it, I notice a sudden urge to, I don't know, clean the kitchen or bring out the trash or whatever. And so I go inside and focus on my feeling of discomfort and see, okay, hey, why am I now trying to escape this? And then I realize, okay, I don't like to do taxes, which I already know. I take a look at myself, see how laughable that is, and see this emotion that was rising up, this discomfort, and just handle it. And in order to handle it, there's a little tool, which is derived from psychology. It's called Surf the Urge. So if case, as an example, you have a problem with sweets during your work. So some people eat a lot of like different kind of stuff which is around during working on an Excel or PowerPoint you don't enjoy. And this is exactly the same thing. So once this urge arises to have a little snack or a coffee or another coffee or whatever, it's more likely that this task that you've been doing is not really fulfilling and there's a discomfort. And if you serve this urge for just 10 minutes, so just put your alarm clock on 10 minutes and see if this urge is still there in 10 minutes. And for this 10 minutes, just flow through and go on with your work, your task that you've been doing. And most likely, after 10 minutes, you will recognize, okay, I can as well finish it, or the urge has subsided, totally or partially, depends. And then you can have a longer period of focus. And of course, you'll be distracted sooner or later. None of us can go from 0 to 100 in indestructibility. This is more or less not possible. But there's small progress steps which we can take. And for me personally, meditation is the key to that. So 5 minutes per day to start with, every day, and already after 21 days, I can guarantee you, you will notice a difference in your level of awareness, which you can apply, for example, what we talked about, to be not distractible or slightly distractible, doing tasks that you do not enjoy or not enjoy as much. On the other side, you can see the other side of this coin is flow. Many people talk about the state of flow and how to get into a state of flow. And flow is the absence of discomfort when you do something you really enjoy. And then the same notifications don't matter. So whenever I enjoy doing something, like, for example, painting, it doesn't matter. I don't even look at my phone and I'm not even drawn to it to see, oh, what have I missed? And maybe in some other room, and I'm totally in the zone. On the other side, when I'm doing an Excel, which I don't really enjoy for some kind of pitch or whatever, then I'm really inclined to check my mails or see if there are new projects up on the platform or whatever, or scroll social media and half an hour is gone. And in order for us to get a grip on these topics, let me now briefly touch different meditation techniques that are available from different religions and cultures. And if you're a beginner and you have never had any experience, then I recommend in the beginning the 4 options to choose from and to experiment with, which might suit you best. The first and the most classic option is to silently sit with closed or half open eyes. If the eyes are closed, it doesn't matter where you sit. If your eyes are half open, you might want to sit in front of a wall or in front of maybe something which is not distracting you, to look at the floor, which is very, let's say, neutral. And you can just sit in silence for a certain amount of time and try to watch your thoughts. So this is the classic Buddhist meditation, which is called Zazen. The classic lotus posture, which you know from Buddha pictures, is not necessarily, it's not a must. So many people say, oh, I cannot sit in the lotus posture, my legs hurt, my knees hurt. And the lotus posture does has a certain meaning and a certain background, but it's not necessary for you to sit in the lotus posture to meditate. You can just sit on a normal chair or stool or whatever. Just make sure your back is more or less upright, because this has also esoteric meaning, but the practical meaning is you are less inclined to fall asleep if your back is upright. Because if you lay flat down and start meditating, it's very likely that you fall asleep. On the other side, if you have problems falling asleep, you can just try to meditate before going to bed or in bed, and you will see that you drift away very quickly. And you will see that you drift away very quickly, and then you fall asleep. This is the case with most people if you do not have any serious anxiety disorder or whatever. And so, from the toolbox, Zazen, which means sitting with oneself or sitting at the source. This is the translation. It's freely available to you. You can do it anywhere, anytime. And in the beginning, the place, as I already mentioned, has to be more or less quiet for you to reap the benefits. But if you get used to it, all noises and all smells or whatever can be incorporated into the meditation process, for they are help for you to come back to what you were actually doing. So in the beginning, when I was starting to meditate, I also just sat down in Zazen. I was just sitting there, and maybe my neighbors started drilling or some children were playing outside, and I got angry because I was like, hey guys, I'm trying to focus here and everybody is just distracting me. And as mentioned, the source of irritation is inside, not outside. Outside is just a trigger. And so I tried to think about it. What are these things distracting me from? Meditation. So let's get back to observing the mind, to observing the self. And every time I hear something that brings me out of my mind games, which might take me away from meditating, I hear something, I smell something, and think, okay, now where was I? Was meditating. So, okay, watch the breath or whatever you focus on. And sitting in Zazen, sitting in silence is free. It can be done anywhere. You can start with 5 minutes, extend it to 10, 15, 20 minutes. I sit daily for 1 hour and enjoy it in the meantime. But in the beginning, this might be the most difficult technique, although it is the simplest technique available. Why is it so? Buddha, who is claimed to be, let's say, the inventor or who made this technique very popular around the world, he lived many thousand years ago. Back then, the population of the earth was the size of Italy. And whenever you had new impressions, you met new people, it was a lifetime event. So if you were living in a village and some new person passed by on their journey, you told your grandchildren about this event, that I met a guy from another country who passed through this village. And now we live in a world with all these impressions constantly bombarding us. And our brain is running, as I mentioned earlier, constantly in a beta wave frequency. And so in order for us to just enjoy silence, we need already a certain level of awareness and contemplation. So sitting in Zazen, sitting in silence, or just sitting in the lotus posture is actually a technique for more advanced meditators. Not for everyone. Some people just sit down and just can enjoy it from the very first second. But for many people, in my experience, from my clients, they cannot just be in silence with themselves to start off with. So sitting silently is one option, is the most easy option, but it's unfortunately not as easy for everybody to start. And there's help. We live in a digital world, and we talk now through digital channels and so on. So there's many, many apps. There are many apps in guided meditation on YouTube, on an app is called Insight Timer, and they're like Headspace, Calm, Calm Me, Seven Mind, whatever, many, many apps. I personally do not have any app that I would certainly recommend over another app, because it's a very individual thing. So I can just recommend everyone and anyone to try different apps. Every app has a different voice, a different style, and also a little bit different technique they use for their guided meditations, because most apps use guided meditations. And I touched on it a little earlier, what guided meditations can do for you. They always leave you with your thoughts, which carry you away due to a very low level of awareness. And the guided meditation brings you always back to the here and now, which is basically the core of meditation, where you can observe your mind, your feelings, and your sensations. And so we have Zazen, we have guided meditation through apps and YouTube, and an app which is called Insight Timer. I do not necessarily recommend it, but this app Insight Timer contains a whole world of guided meditation in the app by different providers. So it's definitely interesting to look into it, because it's very versatile. And also there you have to try different persons to see who you can better adjust with or feel comfortable with. Then there is a very interesting technique which is called TEM, T-E-M, not to confuse with TM. TM is a patented abbreviation for transcendental meditation, which is also a technique, but I personally will not elaborate on it as I am not a big fan. But TEM is called total embodiment method or meditation, depends on who defines it. And this is something I can truly recommend to all the beginners. I don't have any relationship to the guy who wrote it, or I don't get any credit, but I can tell you that this book here by Hai. The warrior meditation is a very good entry point for this particular technique. So this total embodiment method. It's derived from samurai, and it's a method where you meditate with open eyes. And the goal of this technique is to bring you in an alpha wave status of your brain immediately. So while Zazen and guided meditations might lead you to a deeper state of brain frequency and a deeper insight, maybe, this total embodiment method, the warrior's meditation, is something to be trained and learned, which you can apply during the day immediately. So you can switch yourself into a meditative mode even while walking or talking and so on. And we also have another source where you can get several techniques for starters, which is our blog. We have a website, Soulmastery.de. Also here, profile on Instagram, soul.mastery. And there's a link in the bio to our website. On our website, Soulmastery.de, there's a blog, or Soulmastery/blog, where there's many different techniques we share. They're for free. Most of the articles are in German. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the German language. I'm here in Munich. Some of them are translated into English, some not. So you might want to check out our blog for some free techniques. And also what I can recommend, if you are a little bit on the experiential side and want to look a little bit further, also look at osho.com. Some of you might have heard of Osho, who is an Indian mystic, guru, whatever. Many people say many different things about him, but I tested his techniques, or we tested his techniques many times, and his techniques require 1 hour of meditation. They're free on osho.com. You can go osho.com, meditate, and there's video instructions, music to the meditations and so on. And you can always try. Osho.com is osho.com. That was a question here. And our website is soulmastery.de, and there you have media and blog. I hope that answered that question. And so if we sum it up, the options available to you for your daily practice is silent sitting, Zazen, not necessarily in the lotus posture. And then we have apps, guided meditations, where I encourage everybody to try different apps. Most of them have free trials, and also they don't cost so much. So we spend a lot of money on different things that are more unnecessary than that. And also the TM, Warriors Meditation. This is what I just showed this book. This is a good method, TEM, and also osho.com and our blog. And then there's also one last technique, which I can also share with you, because it's right now might be quite interesting for you as you are at home anyway. It's called Vipassana. Many of you might have heard about Vipassana resorts and retreats. There are many of them. This technique can be used by you without a resort technique. It's very simple. There are two parts to the Vipassana meditation, as is my experience. And the first part is silent sitting, which is kind of like Zazen. You just sit and focus on, for example, your breath. And whenever you get drawn away by your thoughts, come back to your breath. And then you can use any timer or whatever after a certain period of time, which you pre-adjust. When the timer rings, you just walk half your normal speed, looking just slightly ahead to your feet and focusing on the sensation of your feet touching the ground. So, for example, I would do it here in my room. I would sit down, meditate for, let's say, 10 minutes in silent sitting. Then there's a bell, I program on my smartphone. And then for 5 minutes, I would consciously walk with half the speed, looking just one step ahead on the floor and just focusing on the sensation of my feet. And then after 5 minutes, there's another ring, I pre-program on my phone, and then I finish the meditation. So the Vipassana technique can be used also like anytime. And you always have to balance the phase of sitting and walking of, let's say, 2/3, 1/3, or 3/4, 1/4, as you like. But the original technique would be 45 minutes of silent sitting and then 15 minutes of walking, for example. And in the ashram or in the Vipassana resort, there would be also someone walking around, and the master can notice whenever you drift away, and they have a staff, a bamboo staff, and they hit you on the head. So you focus again. So when you sit there and you kind of drift off, then the master will come from the back and hit you with the staff if you do not hear him coming. Because if you're really aware, you can sense him coming, and then you straighten up a little bit and you notice, this guy is not asleep, and then he does not need to hit you on the head. So Vipassana is also one technique you can explore, and you can also Google it. And so because we're already kind of like in this, coming towards the end of the session, I will also take some questions if you have some. But also I can give you some hints for your daily life, how you can also increase awareness with, let's say, mindfulness exercises, which are not necessarily meditation, but also, let's say, pay also into this account. So if you, for example, if you start choosing to meditate and you do 5 minutes every day for the next couple of days, then you can also add these two simple hacks to your daily life, which might increase your daily awareness for yourself and for your work, which also might help you to become less distractible and so on, everything that I mentioned earlier. So one thing would be neutral gear. I call it the neutral gear. I have it also from an Indian resort. They taught me that. And this works like that. Most of you probably had in the past, like me, I'm a little bit older, I'm born in 1980. So most cars I've driven were stick shift, because new cars are all automatic. So if you drive a stick shift, every stick shift has a neutral gear. And whenever we switch through the gears in our daily life, we do not use the neutral gear. We go like an automatic car from one task to the other. So as an example, I'm working on my computer and doing some emails. I'm done. Immediately I get up, I go do the dishes or clean something, or I go to a client meeting, and then I immediately look at my smartphone, browse through something, and so on. So basically what I'm saying, even if I'm in a free time, one activity connects to the other. So there's no break in between. Even when we, let's say, watch Netflix, then we go to the toilet, even there, most people check their smartphone, or eat something in parallel, drink something in parallel, or whatever. So one action after another. And the neutral gear is a technique where you can just take 1 second, maybe 2 seconds, if you're really generous, 3 seconds, to not do anything. So for example, if I'm done with this here, I will close the recording, close the app, and then before I push back my chair, I just sit here for 2 seconds and just feel, how do I feel? Am I anxious? Am I happy? Am I tired or whatever? And then just go and do the other stuff. So use the neutral gear between tasks. It's just 1-2 seconds. And then you can go to toilet, then you can get something to eat or whatever. Just, okay, this is my feeling inside. Just come to yourself. And the second thing, before I answer the questions, there's some questions in the chat, I see that. I will answer it in a second. And the second thing is, beside neutral gear, is add the how to the what. So for example, there are repetitive tasks that you do during your day. So for me, it will be sending emails. So I send, of course, as many of you, a lot of emails. And this is just an example. You can do it with any task that you like. And you can, for example, whenever you press the send button on your computer screen and you really click on your touchpad, on your mouse or whatever, and you send the email, or even on your smartphone through the touchscreen, take 1 second, as with a neutral gear, go inside and feel for yourself, how am I? What is going on? Am I light? Am I heavy? Am I happy? Am I discomforted? Whatever. And the neutral gear, and also this how to the what, in order to keep it in mind, in the beginning, I made post-its and put it under my screen, or put it like in my book, I posted in the first page. So I'm always constantly reminded of that. These are 2 simple tricks to become a little bit more aware about the stuff. So now I'm coming to the question, how could you combine Vipassana with Osho? I mean, Osho has also a Vipassana interpretation of the technique, and the technique that I mentioned is actually the Osho Vipassana technique. So Osho.com meditations, you can take a look after the session. They are 1-hour session, and Osho has also a Vipassana, let's say, session, which you can also do in their resort in Pune in India. And it's not a contradiction. So if you do Vipassana and you want to do it Osho way, you can do it for 45 minutes silent sitting and 50 minutes walking. but you can do Vipassana just for maybe 10 minutes sitting and 5 minutes walking, or 50 minutes sitting and 5 minutes walking, whatever you like. So there's no, this is basically the same thing. So I hope this answered that question. And for my main content, this is the content that I wanted to cover today. Some of you joined a little bit late or whatever. We will record this and save it to Instagram and also share it on our account, Soulmastery. So in case you're interested in this, let's say, little introduction into all these meditation, let's say, basics, you can always look it up on Tuesday and also on our account, Soulmastery. So in case anyone has a question, please feel free to write, or we can share also the screen. And in case, I think that most of you are fine so far. So thank you for tuning in. And I hope there was a little bit of interesting or new content for some of you. And in case just one may start meditating from today for at least 5 minutes, I'm already happy, and it was already worth the effort. So I wish you a great evening, and stay safe, stay healthy, obviously, and bye.